Good evening, everybody, and welcome again into Disney Dialogues. It's our pleasure to sit with you on these Tuesday and Thursday nights and bring you some of the most amazing magic makers we can find. Sometimes magic is made outside the park, and it's really good. Hello, Jen. Welcome in.
Hello.
I'm excited tonight. We've had a great year with Disney Imagineers, Disney fine art artists. I mean, having Noah and Scooter this year has been unbelievable. We've had Disney authors left and right. Talking with Gary Wolf in the past, and so many more that are coming in along the way has been incredible. And tonight we continue this run of amazing Disney Imagineers that I just have to say it that our parks wouldn't be the way they are without this gentleman's efforts. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Their stories are amazing. I could just sit and listen to their stories just forever. And the thing that I get excited about in these interviews is that it seems like they all have these stories
Mhm.
that they've never told before or haven't even shared with us. So we're hearing
Yes.
it for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's a very cool part of this is
I,
to hear those stories.
it's kind of, I know you and I have talked about it a couple times that you kind of sit and you feel like you're back like a kid with your grandparents watching, Walt Disney on a Sunday night just tell his
Mhm.
stories. And here we are, talking with another one. Theron Skees is touched so much. And we're going to talk about that tonight. And I'm not talking a ride or two. I'm talking parks or two in what he has left his fingerprint on. And then his time after being an Imagineer. He's bringing so much more and helping so many people and bringing a lot to this community. It's going to be great tonight. I also want to highlight, he's worked in multiple countries. He spent almost 6 years outside of the U.S. Which is amazing. He's had so many projects involved with Disney. He spent nearly 4 years of his own company time working in the Middle East. So we're going to talk a lot about his
Mhm.
company, his book. We're going to talk about that tonight. It's going to be a good time. So why don't we get things started? If you could do me the justice of doing, you do such a great job with these introductions. I'll show everybody a couple slides along the way, and we'll get our guests in here and just have a good time.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. Let's get going. Our guest tonight is a respected former Walt Disney Imagineering executive, a master storyteller, a
Mhm.
global public speaker, an honored executive coach, and an acknowledged specialized consultant.
Mhm.
So many hats to wear. In his 23 years with Walt Disney Imagineering, he held numerous roles and titles, including vice president, portfolio creative executive, executive creative director, director of creative development, and show quality standards, show producer, and art director. The list just keeps on going.
Yeah.
We couldn't experience Disney the way we do without Theron's fingerprints touching so many iconic locations, including Disney Springs, Disneyland Paris, Hong Kong Disneyland, Hollywood Studios at its inception in the beginning, and the Disney Cruise Line.
That I got to pause you for 1 second. That's incredible across there. When you
Yeah, I
when you
mean
when you think about
that's
that,
that's
it, it
everything.
it's just unbelievable. I already see some great comments also going in the chat, Jen. Let
Mhm.
everybody know moderators are going to be dropping links for our guests all throughout the night. Click on the website, click on his socials, give him a follow so you can stay up with him. We'll highlight those at the end of the night, and we will try to get to as many comments as we can. Highlight at Pete McDivitt Show, and we will. Wait to hear about the rest of the story, Jen.
Yep. So, in addition to Disney, our guest tonight has collaborated with some of the world's most iconic brands, including Tiffany and Company, Under Armour, Coca-Cola, the NBA, Universal, and Landry's, and that's just to name a
Wow.
few.
Yeah.
Theron is the founder of the Designers Creative Studio, a boutique studio that provides innovative, solution oriented designs, growing brand equity through impactful guest experiences.
Yep.
The Designer's Creative Studio provides a wide range of services, including executive coaching, visual design, user experience design, public speaking, brand consulting, and business consulting.
It's a lot.
It
It's
is
impressive. It's very impressive.
very much. While he is understandably proud of his success in the public forum, one of his most cherished accomplishments is being the father of two military combat veterans. Close to my heart,
Yeah.
military, proudly representing the U.S. Marines and the U.S. Air Force.
I, I,
I love hearing that.
I just
Love
got to
it.
go give a hoorah for that. I love it. Love it.
There you go. The following quote from Theron's website gives you a great synopsis of who he is. And the quote is, whether providing early narrative and concept development, strategic creative guidance, designing customer experience journeys, or bringing seasoned leadership experience to teams and organizations, his expertise is matched only by his passion.
Yes.
It is our privilege to welcome to Disney Dialogues the accomplished Theron Skees.
Theron, welcome in.
Wow. My head is so puffed up and my cheeks are so rosy. That was amazing.
I think you've earned all of that, my friend, through 23 years of making magic and then everything you've done afterwards and raising two soldiers in your household. I think you've earned all those stripes. And thank you for joining us here tonight. We're proudly showing your book and your Designer's Creative Studio logo. We're going to talk about both throughout the interview, but I thought we would kind of start things out tonight as we usually do, just saying, hey, if we could just share a simple introduction for maybe just some points that we haven't done along the way for some of the guests that are watching tonight and meeting you for the first time.
That's great. And thanks for inviting me to the show. It's a real pleasure to be here with you guys. It's so much fun to talk about the thing that you love and the thing that you're passionate about. So I always appreciate that opportunity. I would be remiss if I didn't also include my two daughters in that. I have four children, two sons, two daughters, and I'm also the proud grandparent of four
Oh,
grandbabies as well. So
congratulations. That's awesome.
thank you. That's a role that I cherish even more than all of my work in themed entertainment, obviously.
Absolutely.
Well, well, let's see. I think the one of the things that I'm the most thankful for in my professional career is the opportunity to work across so many different disciplines, so many different applications of dimensional storytelling. You covered some of them in your extensive introduction, but to be able to work across theme parks, attractions, hotels, RD&E, retail dining and
Yes,
entertainment,
payment.
urban development, and cruise lines, to not to mention a bunch of other things. That's really, really amazing, and I think that's such a blessing because how you apply story, how you design, and how you work in those areas is all slightly different. And that just gave me a really great opportunity to learn how to adapt into each one of those markets.
I love that. I love that. There was so much more that we could have talked about tonight. I'll be honest. When I looked at your portfolio of everything that you touched during your 23-year time, that I just had to kind of go with some of the top ones right there. And I just want everybody to know that his touching of Disney, his fingerprint of Disney, can be seen everywhere as you go around. And of course, we'll talk about a bunch of those as we get through, and you're going to see me light up because Jen knows we're going to talk about a couple of them tonight that are my favorites that
Ooh,
are
great.
some of you touch. So without further ado, let's get rolling. Jen?
Yeah, I want to jump right into this Disney Imagineering. I really want to hear about that. It is an incredible legacy that you have with over 20 years with Walt Disney Imagineering. Could you just share with us what it was like to be there and witnessing and contributing to such iconic transformations within that whole Disney universe?
I think the most amazing part of that, it's the largest part of my professional career, is the fact that Disney as a legacy brand, I think really does it well.
Mm-hmm.
They invest a lot of time into the process to make sure that it's done right. Disney is a brand that really focuses on the details, and it's the details of storytelling. And coming up in the industry, having the ability to work with Disney and sort of cut my teeth, as it were, on that process of dimensional storytelling and creating experiences that make an emotional connection with guests.
Mhm.
It was the most awesome thing.
I love that.
It's really grounded me and established me in the industry as a whole. But it was enabled me to work at this, gold standard, as it were, throughout the industry. And so I'm very, very thankful for that. I've had so many people that have asked me throughout the years, how do I work for Imagineering? How do I get a job there? And or they ask me, how did you get started? And I always a little bit, embarrassingly say that I stumbled onto it. It wasn't a
Wow.
company or a group that I really knew about. I was working in film. I was, set builder, scenic painter, sculptor,
Okay.
really working in a trade, theatrically, and I made the transition to what they call artificial rock work, where you're basically sculpting plaster, concrete into rock forms, and that was my bridge into Imagineering. I ended up loving it way better than film, and stayed there for 23 years officially. I worked quite a few other years as a consultant for the company, but those don't officially count.
Well, that's impressive. That's that is
Very
just
much.
something. I love it. I love it. I'm going to throw a curveball at you real quick. One, it wasn't on our list, but I'm going to ask you this because
Mhm.
I asked another Imagineer this, and I love their answer. Before I go over and talk about our next topic, which is the Springs, one of my favorite locations. If you had a chance to do something with Walt or Roy, what would you do? Is it a dinner? Is it a walk through the park? Is it what would you do?
For me, I would walk through the park. As
Love
much
that.
as what we do, we meaning experienced
It's
design
right.
professionals, what we do is there's a lot of theory, there's a lot of work in the headspace, there's a lot of psychology, there's a lot about users, that you think through and design. But the other side of that is if you don't know how to implement,
Right.
to actually really understand how it works dimensionally, physically, and how it operates, then you kind of miss a big portion of what the intent is of the experience.
Right.
So walking with Walt, that's where I would want to go. I'd
I
want to
love
go
that.
Mhm.
and see how does he interpret the story, that, especially intellectual property that he was taking from a two-dimensional medium of film on the screen and adapting it to a
Three
three-dimensional
dimensional.
world, you know in in uh,
Mhm.
in an immersive surrounding environment. That was a big leap, especially back in the day.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. There's so much to look back into there. I was just always curious. It's a great answer. Fantastic answer.
Mhm.
Should also highlight before I jump over, Delos Diz, who I believe you did their podcast, is in here supporting
Yes.
tonight. They are great,
Mhm.
great friends of the channel. And also
Right.
Spaceship Ears, you might know his dad and his granddad, Mr. John DeCoeur, is uh,
We haven't met.
you
No.
haven't met? Okay. The John that's John DeCure Jr.'s son, John D. And he comes into our channel all the time and talks with us. So we
Wonderful.
love having a lot of support here tonight watching us. Thank you all for being here. I want to talk about the Springs. I absolutely this is a great picture. First off,
That's
you know,
skinny me.
that's that's great.
We all
Maybe
have
we've
one of
all had
those.
skinny me.
Okay, I'm stealing that. I'm just saying it. I'm stealing that. That is
We all
fantastic.
have one of those.
As we look into these key segments of Disney and
Mhm.
that you have played and your role, I wanted to start with the Springs because it's one of my favorite places to go. Could you share with us some of your experience working on this project, your thoughts on its inception, and how you feel it has become to what it is today?
Well, the great thing about the Springs, is Disney Springs, is that it falls in line with every um, role that I ever had in the industry with
Okay,
Disney. Every single role came as a surprise to me. I got a phone call, and it was, "Hey, can you do this for us? Are you interested in this role?" That
right,
was one part, and then the second part was this something I'd never done before. So it was every single role, every promotion, every project completely new, never did it before.
wow,
And I'm also one of the things that I'm extremely thankful for, because you get into a cycle. I talk about this in the book, where you have to learn, you have to then adapt and implement. You have that cycle: learn, adapt, implement, before you achieve mastery.
Okay.
And the Springs was a huge one for me. It was by far the most complex project I've ever worked on in my life,
Okay.
even today, as many years ago as that was. And but it was amazing. It was something so new for the company, even though the company had RD&E locations in place
Hmm.
in many different resorts. The expansion and what the company wanted to do there was so new and so fresh. It just hadn't been done before.
Right.
Even as a creative team, we had to rethink our design approach and our approach to storytelling, because we couldn't lean on the well-defined process of, say, attraction design, because we couldn't represent the Disney brand so succinctly. It
Right.
had to be done in a way that was kind of like an umbrella approach to the Disney
Okay.
brand, and all these dozens and dozens, more than 100 other brands had to fit within that and stand on their own, and they all had to, work synergistically together. That was a really huge challenge from a design perspective.
And I love how you acknowledge the storytelling, because I don't think, Jen and
Mhm.
I have talked about this when we've been down in the Springs together. It is a story being told as you're going around there. You just don't
Mhm.
realize it unless you think about the things. I think it's spectacular. It's one of my favorite places to go. So
I'm so
The
glad to hear
story
that.
the story is that I spend too much money at Disney Springs. So
well,
Okay, not my
that's
fault.
the
Okay.
story.
I love
One
it.
thing
I
I'll
love it.
say about Disney Springs is it really is a fantastic case study for thematic design and story-driven environments. And I'll just take two
I love
seconds
this.
and
Please.
express this, because when you have experience building theme parks and attractions, um, and then you jump over and do something like this, you realize that the process that you use in attractions, and I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's so well defined at Disney that as a team, you're really talking to yourselves. Right, as a team of Imagineers, you're talking to the asset owner. That could be Paris, it could be Hong Kong, whatever,
Right.
the operations team, the leadership of the company. They know it, we know it, and it's a process that you get into that groove. There's definitely challenges, there's all kinds of frustrations, but this is something completely different, because it didn't it couldn't be theme first. It had to be a very subtle and nuanced story, so that your three levels of experience, um, uh, 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 well, how would you call it? People who love experiences, there's three
Hmm.
levels: waders, swimmers, and divers, right? So Disney Springs is a great way to showcase that people who don't really care about theme or story, they can go there and have a fantastic time, good time,
Right.
um,
Mhm.
buy a pair of jeans, get a coffee, whatever they want. The
Right.
swimmers, people who acknowledge it and they think, wow, we're in a different kind of neighborhood. This architecture is different,
Mhm.
or whatever.
Right.
They also are rewarded by that. But then the divers, the people who really want to understand, is that a pump that's used for the ice house? Yes. They pulled spring water out, and this is where they made the ice. So that is a perfect example where theme parks have to conform to that. Urban design does not, unless you're Disney.
Absolutely. And the flow of that entire unit for all the way around, the placement of the restaurants, the placement of your shops and how they
Yeah.
tie, the placement of the walk through single spots around, where you can walk up to the kiosk and do it. It's just, you can spend a whole night there, walk the whole entire thing, and really not see the same thing twice, even though you really are. You don't realize it. So,
Yeah.
exceptionally
Yeah.
done. Exceptionally done.
Did
Go.
you know? I'll ask you this, Pete. Did you know that there are two tracks of music there? I don't know. Just didn't know if you ever experienced that. There's a daytime track,
Daytime
and
track and
that
a nighttime track.
right. The beats permitted on the daytime track are faster, because that's how you walk during the
Mhm,
day. Most people who visit today are kind of focused and purpose driven,
mhm.
where at night it's a little bit more laid back. You're dining and stuff.
Mhm.
So Very, very subtle nuance we included there.
I also think I love the
Well,
nuance, and
Dr.
I love the nuance that I think was done on purpose, and that is the placement of the open auditorium for music. The energy that's created there is pumped up and rocking at the place that you would like your guests to spend their most energy and fun, World of Disney. So I thought that was a
Mhm,
great, to me, that's one of the things that I
mhm.
was like, oh, that's great. That's a genius. So, but love that. All right.
Absolutely.
Jen, I'm sorry, I took a little time. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I want to talk about something now, and I know my mom was in the chat. I know she's going to love to hear about this because it's her favorite attraction. We're going to talk about Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I know it holds a special place in your heart. Could you just spend a few moments sharing with our audience why this attraction plays such an incredibly important role at Hollywood Studios, Paris Disneyland, Disney California Adventure, and Tokyo Disney Sea? Why is it so meaningful for you?
Well, for me, it's I got to know Tower of Terror not only as a guest, but my first role at Disney, full time role, was as the art director of Disney MGM Studios, Disney Hollywood Studios. And during my tenure there, I was there for 8 years in that role. It just so happened that the company did an enormous amount of work in that attraction while I was there. And I was able to lead all of that work and really became just so passionate about that attraction. One of the reasons behind that is because it was one of the only attractions at the time that had a very flexible storyline, right? Anything could
Hmm.
happen inside the Twilight Zone, right? We know that from the TV program. Any story could be told there. There was always this paranormal kind of buzz that went on, and the Twilight Zone as a genre in itself spurred all kinds of other programming and storytelling. So that was really great to know that in an attraction, the story itself could be modified and altered and grown, and could be told
Mhm,
subtly differently over the years so that it could stay relevant for guests.
Right.
The other thing that it offered was great adaptivity within the ride system itself. Now, you may think, wait a minute, doesn't it just go up and down? And you'd be right, it does. Orlando has a slightly different in the fact that you have a lift vehicle, a transfer cab that goes through the fifth
mhm,
dimension, and then a drop shaft, two drop shafts on that. But and that's unique in all the world. But the way that the ride system moves the vehicle through the shafts can be quite different. In fact, when we were working on the it was Tower of Terror 4, we called it. It was the fourth
oh,
iteration, which I believe is still what's running today, I believe.
Okay.
And that was a random profile. Well, to do that, to
mhm,
create those the profiles we wanted to use, we studied 42 different profiles,
Wow.
and so that just gives you the idea of how many different types of movement can occur within that shaft with that vehicle. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that we rode all 42 of those profiles back to back in one night. And
Holy God.
yeah, it was great. We started with a whole bunch of executives, all the marketing people, ops, everybody wanted to be there to make decisions. I think there's the capacity is 22 people in there, I think.
Right. I think so.
And so the cab was full. Everybody started going, and within not it wasn't even an hour. Within 45 minutes, the whole thing was empty, and it was just myself and the ride engineer Michael that was on there, and we rode all 42. So those are the kind of nerdly internal things that I really love about Tower,
mhm.
because you tell a wide variety of stories just in one attraction.
Didn't you have a lot of adaptations that came back to well, MGM slash current Hollywood studios based on what you learned in Paris?
I believe I that wasn't my job, but yes, what we did in Paris was slightly different than what we learned or what we did in Orlando.
Right.
Not only was it a little bit of a different ride system, but we had by the nature of how Tower of Terror and Disneyland Paris was built, we were actually able to save some money and reinvest that in a lot of different props and some other new things. And I believe some of that was taken back to Orlando as well. But
Okay.
within the shaft itself, we added ghostly figures, we added scent, we added an adapted video inside. We did quite a lot of things in there for the fourth version of that. A lot of different effects. We also did a brand new, at the time, it was a brand new three-dimensional audio system on the cab itself that
Right.
moved with the cab, and we could orchestrate sounds that went dimensionally through the cab at the time. So that was really
That's
fun and groundbreaking.
So
that
cool.
is that is amazing stuff. I love that. I could sit here and talk these rides
I
and everything
I
all
can't
night.
imagine riding it 42 times in a row.
It was pretty serious. I have to say
Mhm.
a shout out to my oldest child, my daughter. She hates the ride, terrified of it. And we lived in Paris for 2 years while doing this project. And at the preview, when all of the cast members and the general contractor, everybody that came and they got to ride it, she stood in line with us all the way up, and she, I'm so proud of you, Dad. And my thought was she was going to take the chicken chute, the
Right.
elevator,
Mhm.
and not ride, and she ponied up and went right in the ride. And I was like, "Hun,
Oh.
you don't have to do this." She goes, "Nope, I'm going to do it for you." And to this day I have
Oh.
that picture, and if you want to see what terror looks like, that's the
There it is.
picture.
I love that. I love that. I'd also like to point out that Molly's mom did come in and say she loves the Tower Terror. And I'd like to also ask her for the December trip, please do not get any ideas about trying to break Theron's record of 42 times straight in a row. I just want to throw that out there. So it'll cover there. Well,
I, I wouldn't I
go
wouldn't
ahead.
recommend it. I wouldn't.
Oh.
Hold her to it. Well, inspiration is a key thing, and I'd like to
Mhm.
take a minute to talk about some of the inspiration and influence that you've had in your career and your time. From a leadership perspective, I know that Marty Sklar and Craig Russell played a huge factor, and
Mhm.
from a designer's perspective, Sid Mead and Joe Johnson, many of these names you've heard on our channel before. Everybody, tonight we're going to get to hear a different perspective on it. Could you please just take a few moments and share with our audience about these four incredible individuals and how they impacted your journey?
Absolutely. Well, Marty and Craig, of course, from my time at Imagineering, and I'm one of those weird people that I'm obviously creative. I've worked in creative and in leadership for my whole entire career, 30 plus years. But I'm also extremely process driven, and I have a technical, pragmatic mind as well. So Marty and Craig kind of filled either hemisphere of my brain. And Marty, of
Okay.
course, was not just creative, but he was so well spoken, so well carried himself, and how he negotiated and listened and communicated with a client. And I just thought that was such an excellent representation of how to be in a creative leadership role, and to represent yourself so well, not just ideas and incredibly creative and all of those things that everybody knows about Marty. I don't want to repeat them, but to me, Marty really showed me how to work with clients today. That's I model and channel him all the time.
I love that.
Craig, in large part, did exactly the same, but from a whole nother perspective. Project management, people management, finance management, schedule management, how to negotiate, how to think about scopes and packages of work, and how to move people on the team to accomplish things. And when stuff looked impossible and like there was no way to get through it, Craig was right there and just, let's roll up our sleeves, there's definitely a way through. So these two guys from my Imagineering days really represented those two hemispheres, if you will, of my brain, of how I operate. Sid and Joe, on the other hand, Joe, I absolutely fell in love with Star Wars when I was 10 years old, right? 1977. I'm in
Yep.
line. I'm like, this is what I got to do with my life. And I got Joe Johnson's, well, I should say my parents got Joe Johnson's sketchbook for me.
Okay.
And I still have that book today behind me. The spine's all broken. And all of his drawings in there are completely, every line has a deep groove impression, because as a kid I would trace those drawings over and over
Oh,
and over again to
Oh,
learn that. So Joe was
wow.
such a huge inspiration to me on how to conceptually capture look and feel and mood and atmosphere and action in the simplest line drawings, where Sid was this futurist that captured worlds, and he populated worlds with vehicles and buildings and anthropology and humanity and alien life form, and his mind was just, and vision was so huge. He worked on so many films, and that's a huge point of inspiration for me. So these two gentlemen, these two legends, really informed me from an inspiration standpoint, from design, for sure.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
very cool. Well, one of the parks I hope to be able to visit someday is Disneyland Paris. I love this castle so much. We, for those of you that might not be aware, it was called Euro Disney at one time, Disneyland. That's what it was originally known as. Could you share with our audience, though, your thoughts on this location, what it was like at its inception, what role you played while you were there, and how you see it today?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It's my favorite park from a design perspective. When you look at a classic Disney park, everything there just, it just sings what Eddie Sato did on Main Street and others. And I mean, there's just so many legends within our industry that work there, and that I got to see the work come out of the ground. This was actually Disneyland Paris was my very first job for the Disney company. I went straight off of, I did a bunch of rock work at Universal Studios for their park in Orlando, their very first studios park. And I worked with an extremely talented gentleman by the name of Jolt Hormet.
Schultz
Jolt,
Gourmet.
yeah, as many of you may know, Jolt is the legendary Imagineering leader, senior executive, who sculpted most all of the big artificial rockwork forms for the company, the Tree of Life, the
Right.
caldera in Tokyo, Radiator Springs. I mean, all of these things. So he and I worked together early days at Universal. He
Okay.
got hired and went to Paris, and then he had me come over. So I did rock work at Pirates of the Caribbean. That was my very first job,
Nice.
and worked there. Did all the rock work, interior and exterior, and then on the weekends, because Jolt was behind, I helped him on Big Thunder Mountain, and got to see that whole park come out of the ground. I really love that park. I haven't been there in quite a few years, but it is one of my favorites.
Love it. Love it. Well,
Yeah.
Jen, you got to put it on your bucket list. Make sure you get
Yeah.
Oh,
there.
it's there. It is definitely there.
It's there. Well, talking about across the pond and everything, you look at the Disney's expansion of the Asian markets. That was really seen as a huge initiative in the early 2000s by Michael Eisner and the team. And your impact and leadership at Hong Kong Disneyland played a crucial role in that effort. Could you take a little time to elaborate, on that time of your career and share what it meant to you as such a significant part of Disney's overall global growth?
Absolutely. It was a real amazing role to be cast in for uh, Hong Kong Disneyland. I think this shot says it all, right? When you think about Fairy Tale Castle
Mhm,
and you've got these green mountains behind it,
mhm.
I think it's the absolute best shot of, and this is the older castle, I believe. The newer castle is
Yes.
expansive and larger. But my role started year 3. So the
Okay.
park had quite literally just opened. It was the very first park in the China region, Southeast Asia. Of course, the Tokyo park resort had been open for a number of years. But as I came to realize, not very many people from Indonesia or the Philippines or Vietnam or Laos or any of the Southeast Asian countries, they didn't really travel to Japan. The Japanese resort was really made for the Japanese, and there's enough
Mm,
population there that they visited. They visited very frequently. That was a learning for me. So Hong Kong Disneyland was really the first park where I think it was within a 5-hour travel radius around Hong Kong Disneyland is a quarter of the Earth's population. So
Wow.
we were getting Muslim travelers from Islam countries in the Middle East. We were getting travelers from Africa and Egypt. We were getting travelers from Southeast Asia, all the way down to Australia, Papua New Guinea. So it was a huge variety and mix of guests. So from that perspective, I had a really ground level opportunity to not only be a part of teaching those guests how to enjoy and how to think about immersion, how to think
Hmm.
about being engaged with the story, but then also that responsibility also extended to cast members and members of my own team who were local, most of them, and
Oh.
didn't know how to design, operate, keep clean a Disney park. So I had this, it felt like a dual role in a sense where I was partnering with the operational leadership there, many of whom were Western at the time, and our whole role was to really build that park up. I established the entire, Imagineering team there. That was what they call design services. So it partners with the operator, literally
Right.
365 days a year, and works with them. And then, I had a unique aspect of my role was being a partner with the government there. Quite a lot of the land was government land, and the relationship there in Hong Kong was a partnership, a joint venture partnership with the government. So
Right.
it was a really hand in glove. That was the first time I'd ever really worked in that way too. So a lot of learnings in that part of the world that affected me professionally, but also personally in such a deep and meaningful way.
I think a lot of that can set up
Mhm.
and help Disney upcoming with this new Dubai lineup that they're going to do, because they can learn from a lot of the experiences, the trials and tribulations that you had to go through with Hong Kong. So
Absolutely.
indirectly, you're still helping the company today, which is amazing as they take on to that next step thing there. So, uh,
Absolutely. Shanghai Disneyland, all of those Imagineering teams spent a lot of time in Hong Kong, and we assisted them and helped them with, vendors and specialty fabricators that Hong Kong had really trained to do Disney level work.
mhm.
And we said, we're happy to help you, but, let's make sure we strategically think together how we use these vendors so that all of them aren't completely occupied on Shanghai work, and Hong Kong Disneyland still gets their projects done as well. Oh yeah, no problem. Yep, yeah, we'll figure that out. Well, you know what happened, right? Shanghai came in, and all of those fabrication houses were completely overbooked, and we were stuck training new ones.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
the
never works out as
big
planned.
dog
Something
needs
of
to
these things.
please.
That's amazing. Love it.
Well, when we sit down with our guests, we love to talk about memorable interactions that you've had with the guests that are visiting the parks that you're at. And, excuse me, during your time hosting the Dining with an Imagineer, many of these moments were created. Could you share with our audience some of those memorable moments that you had and stories that stand out to you from those experiences with the guests?
Absolutely. I was really blessed to be a part of a group. It was about 14 or so Imagineers from Florida. And there's a program that was started, as you see the plate there, Dining with an Imagineer. They also, when animation was there, they had Dining with an Animator,
Correct.
which some people may remember. And then, of course, the company shut down the animation studio and it just transferred to Imagineers. What is really cool is you're showing the plate there that says the Flying Fish Cafe, which they also offer dinner with an Imagineer. The Brown Derby image that you have there, of course, is from the
Lunches.
Disney Hollywood Studios, and that was the lunches there, right? One of my favorite memories here, believe it or not, is long before the Dining with an Imagineer program started, my team helped the Brown Derby team expand the restaurant with a kind of a VIP room called the Bamboo Room,
Okay.
and we did a bunch of different research on the Hollywood Brown Derby and found out that they had this special room called the Bamboo Room. We had a blast designing and building it out. Well, what eventually came to be is that's the spot where all the Dining with an Imagineer lunches took place. So it was really
Wow.
special to be in there, knowing that my team and I worked to put this together. So really, really special. Meeting with our guests was probably one of the biggest highlights of my whole Imagineering career. I always came out of those lunches completely pumped and psyched and just like, wow, I feel so good about what I do, because you get this touch point with the very people that all of the blood, sweat, and tears that you're putting together, all the difficult times, you're doing for them.
Yeah.
And when you get to just sit and talk with them and you see all of the individual stories of how this particular experience affected this one, and that kind of experience affected that one, and this is my favorite attraction, and this is my favorite experience. It's amazing. It always was like just a burst of sunshine, and I just felt pumped up and ready to take on the world after those lunches.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, let's stay with the whole MGM slash Disney's Hollywood area. You held multiple art director responsibilities at Disney MGM. This was actually my first park I ever went to at Disney, to be honest with you out there. Now known as Hollywood Studios, obviously, everybody. Could you talk a minute about your time working on the project, and with all the recent announcements with the new changes coming to the park from an Imagineer's perspective, what excites you most about the future of where Hollywood Studios is going?
Absolutely. As I mentioned previously, I was the art director here from 1998 to 2006. I believe that's right. So about 8 years. And during that time, there were just so many projects that the company built there. I came in right as Fantasmic was in the middle of that work. Rock and Roller Coaster came in. 100 Years of Magic. I mean,
Oh my
just
gosh.
the stunt show, all the work at Tower. It was just so much that was done there. One of the things that I remember the most, that I had the most fun with, because it just worked out this way that I ended up working there, because I could have been transferred anywhere. My project that I was originally hired for was the backlot at Disney MGM Studios, and many of you may remember in the olden days that the
Yes.
backlot was just made for the tram tour. It wasn't really
Right.
ever designed for guests to walk on those streets. But the Disney MGM Studios had a pretty big problem in the beginning, and that it was, people liked it a whole lot more than the company originally built it to handle. They only built it as a half-day experience. At that time, if you can think all the way back, after Epcot was built, there was a lot of concern that a third park would, what they call, cannibalize. It would basically take guests from Magic Kingdom and Epcot, and they were really concerned that that would happen. So they built Disney MGM Studios only as a half-day park. Well, you guys know what happened. Everybody loved it, and they
Hmm.
very quickly had to expand. So they let guests walk on the back lot. Well, those sets were designed as regular sets, and what happened in our beautiful Florida weather is those things began to deteriorate. So my project was to redesign the back lot, and then actually be a field art director. So working overnight, all night, with crews that were doing plaster and bricks and metal and all of the thematic facade design back there. So that was one of my first art director roles. But I was going to say, we established a relationship with the Disney studios in Burbank, and we actually began taking props and sets and costumes, and we really created this relationship where we would then bring all of that to Disney MGM Studios, and it was really fun to spearhead that, and because my love of movies,
Yes.
obviously, that made that role really special.
I love that. I actually got in trouble with my mom. This is a great. I've never told this story on this channel ever. I got in
Uh-oh.
trouble with. We were doing the backlot tour and going back through and seeing the Golden Girls house and all the great stuff that was back there, and so much back there all through it. And I started trying to pay off the driver to drive the take the vehicle. Look, I said to him, I'll never forget this. I know that the airport strip is close and you can get there. Here's $20 to just take us. Nobody will know. We'll come back. And I'll never forget, my mother whacked me in the back. Sit down over there. So I was trying to, I really wanted to see the airport strip, but that was such a
That's
fun time. It's
great.
hard to believe that's gone and changed over. Wow. I love it.
It
Love it.
really
Love it.
is. Marty said to me one time, this is great, great quote. He goes, when they start demolishing things that you worked on and built on a team, that's when you'll know you've been here a long time. And it's the truth about the studios, right? They demolished the stunt show. They took the plane away. They completely changed the whole backlot. And that's one thing that's really nice to see about Disney Hollywood Studios. Once the art of filmmaking and animation really changed,
Mhm.
it really had a profound impact on Hollywood studios because they just don't make movies like that anymore.
Right.
And so that it's very hard in the themed destination market because you're into it for billions of dollars, right? If you're an asset owner,
Mhm.
and being able to reinvest billions to try to keep it relevant and up to date is very hard, and the studios have struggled with that. I'm glad to see the move to try to consolidate some of those big IPs and represent them there, and my hope is that they do a more seamless job telling those stories through all of those changes.
Before we go over to Jen, and I know she's going to jump over into cruises, the one thing I wish Disney would do, and I've said this many a times, is I wish that they would go get the sorcerer's hat and put it down somewhere in Springs. Just put it up somewhere in Springs where there's room or space. Just because, to me, it was a huge part. I love that you can see the Chinese theater now. I love that, but I do miss the hat. And if they mess with Pluto on top of the building, I'm gonna have words with somebody. I'm just letting them know. So,
Well,
yeah,
someday I've got all kinds of great stories about that hat, and so someday we'll have to get into that.
love that. Love that.
Oh, I love that. Well, you were not only involved in parks, you were also involved in the Disney Cruise Lines. So let's talk about your involvement in the evolution of this Disney excursion. Tell us what roles you played and what does the growth and success of the Disney Cruise Line mean to you personally? And how does that feel to see how it's developed?
Well, thanks for bringing this up. It was the last role that I, pardon me, it was the last role that I played with the company. I was a senior leader, a vice president, creative vice president, and the title is portfolio creative executive. And basically, the way Imagineering did it was they broke up regions of the world and businesses, and the Imagineers had a senior executive that led that portfolio. And mine was the cruise line. There was only, like, I don't know, 11, 12 of us in the world, and we all
Wow.
reported to the president. So it was a pretty big role. At the time, it was probably about $5 billion. The whole portfolio with the all of the dry docks, the fact that they were purchasing Lighthouse Point at the time, and one of my primary focuses was leading the team to design the 3 new ships that are in the process of releasing. So I have to say my time at the cruise line was amazing. It really was. I try to spend time. You part of your question was the success of the cruise line, and
Mhm.
I just wanted to say for everyone listening, the most important role of a designer in this industry is to remember that this is a commercial venture, right?
Mhm.
It's not an art program.
Right.
We don't create theme parks and they're free to enter. It's a commercial enterprise. So some of my proudest moments from a design perspective, I would say, are represented on the ships. And it's in ways that very few people would ever really see as a guest. But I feel really proud because through my leadership and partnership with the operations team, we were able to make those ships extremely profitable, probably more profitable than the other ships in the fleet, because we modified the design and took use of so much of the ship. Plus, we created all these additional experiences that were luxury in nature. It was a time before COVID when the company was really focused on how do we adapt and create more luxury experiences, because frankly the guests were really demanding that. And so that was amazing, starting from scratch. I'd never worked in nautical design before, and like I said before, you get the call, how would you like to do this? We think you're the right person. And it's, you start off and now you're in charge of 145,000 gross tons per ship, and a dry dock every year. And so it was the most busy I've ever been in my life. 60, 70-hour weeks. All of our design teams were overseas. Where the ships were built were overseas.
Right.
Our offices were in Celebration in Orlando, and
Uh,
extremely complex, but something I'm extremely proud of. An amazing team. I got to handpick the majority of the team myself, so that was really, really special. And yeah, great memories.
I love that. Great story. Great,
Fantastic.
great question, Jen. I love that.
Yeah,
What?
love it.
Well, let's transition for a second. I want to take a few minutes here and go a different direction. I want to talk about an incredible artistic efforts of Theron's, and this is creating memorable worlds: a journey into the themed experience design. And this takes readers on a journey into the enchanting world of themed entertainment with such a unique perspective from somebody with so much experience and passion about it. It's fantastic. Could you share a little bit about the concept behind the book and discuss this true labor of love that you had? And while we're doing it, Debbie has just dropped a link in there for you to hit up Amazon. You can grab this book. It's going to be an incredible read. If you're loving this interview, the book is a big extension. You're going to want to grab it. Theron, if you could.
Well, thanks for highlighting this. It really is. It truly was a labor of love. I'm not a writer. It's hard to say when you're an author, but I never saw myself as a writer. And I had so many friends and colleagues that were close to me that really encouraged me to take this route. And so I kind of dove in with both feet. I'm one of those kind of people that when I get focused on something, it's sort of a bit like a freight train. And so I really just put everything into it. And when I got finished writing it, it ended up being almost 390 pages. So
Wow.
it's a pretty hefty book. But as typical Imagineers, you don't just do one thing. I did the design of the book. I did all the illustrations. I did the graphics. I did the layout. I put all of that together with an amazing publisher, Barry Hill at Rivershore Press.
Nice.
And I'm extremely proud of it. My approach was, what kind of support could I have used as a young person, as a young professional coming into the industry? It would have been so nice to have a book that laid out, what is this industry that I'm going into? What is it? What is it made of? What are
Hmm.
the different industries? Who are the people that work in this industry? What are they? What are the roles? And then how do they work together? That's an important part when you
Absolutely.
begin to think about it. Even the term Imagineering is a term that Walt coined, that is imagination and engineering. It's the right and left parts of your brain that are put together. So as you can imagine, on project teams, when you have technical people and non-technical people, and they're put together with a limited budget and limited scope, you can end up with a lot of sparks. So how to work together as a team to deliver these impossible places is really something I wanted to capture. That plus all of the processes. It's extremely complex work. How do you do that? The later chapters in the book I thought were really important, because it takes a reader all the way through to the point of the last chapter, which is called The Story of You. And the
Okay.
idea is to showcase to the reader how to take everything that you've read, to evaluate yourself, your strengths, and help determine where you would best fit within the industry and literally build a map for yourself, chart your own course within the industry, whether you're a brand new professional, whether you're a veteran, you've been in your role for a while and you're ready to pivot. I just thought that having this as a guide would be super helpful. I know that it would have been for me.
I love it. I love it. And you can find it on Amazon. Like we said, Debbie's dropping the link. You can also go over to the website. We'll be dropping that link throughout the night. Also, all links, if you're watching on the replay, are available in the description of the video. So you can always click on there and find that there as well. So
Great.
let's talk a little bit about some workshops and more. Jen?
Yeah, so let's zip over to your website for a moment, where you offer professional coaching and advisory services, along with keynote speaking workshops. Could you elaborate on these opportunities and share with our audience how they can benefit from what you provide?
Absolutely, and thanks for the opportunity. I think the biggest point for me in my career was getting furloughed and eventually laid off from Disney during the pandemic. And one of the things that provided for me, as I look back now with hindsight, is a real gift, an opportunity to stop and to evaluate my career. What did I learn? What could I do with what I've learned in my experience? Would it apply any place else, or am I always the attraction guy? So that whole exploration for almost a year brought me to the point where I created a proprietary system called narrative experience design. And I leverage that practice, which is a culmination of my 34 years in the industry. And I now work in every segment of the global economy, because what I do is I create story-based branded experiences that link together. It was that other image you had, link together a brand and a customer. And if it's done within an emotionally engaging experience, well, what happens is you end up with an audience of fans. And what company in any segment of our economy wouldn't want to have an audience with the opportunity to make fans, as opposed to just customers who engage with you only for the product or service that you sell? So that's
Absolutely.
kind of my approach. And it's out of that place that I speak at a lot of different companies and organizations. I've had the opportunity to work with different governments in the world. That's been really quite an amazing breakthrough. So I do speaking, I do workshops. Probably one of the things I do the most is professional coaching. Well, I have a lot of people that are just starting out their career and they're thinking, how do I format my CV, my resume, my portfolio? How do I interview? What's a way to get in to the industry? But then I also work with people who have been in their careers for a while. How do I package up what I've done, just what I described for myself, and think about where this can apply? I've worked with presidents and CEOs of companies who are looking for coaching for themselves. They're looking to expand their companies, maybe grow into different markets. So just as a breakdown, I've had the pleasure of working in a lot of different ways, and taking this idea of narrative experience design and my experience in leadership, especially at a senior level within an organization with thousands of people, and applying that to different organizations. It's been a lot of fun.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. When Jen and I were preparing, we talked about how much more you bring to the table and how much you're bringing to the table after your time with Imagineering. And this is, Jen, this is perfect, I think. Great
Yeah.
assessment of that. Absolutely. Well, let's jump over to podcasting. You are the host of a podcast called The League of Extraordinary Storytellers. This show celebrates visionaries, innovators, and orchestrators from the theme park industry, and is filled with all kinds of inspiration and generally historical discussions. Could you share with our audience a little bit about this podcast, its purpose? And I believe it's found on all podcasting major opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Wherever you love to podcast, listen to your podcast or stream them, I'm there. So whether it's Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, or YouTube, it's through my YouTube channel. I was really surprised. You guys probably knew this because you're total pros. I'm the baby in the podcast world, but YouTube, people listen to more podcasts on YouTube than any other platform. So that's kind of interesting. um as if I wasn't doing enough already, I got some people really talked to me about podcasting, and they said, wow, you have, you talk a lot on a lot of other podcasts, you guest a lot, and here you've got this book, and I think you should podcast. And when I looked at it, I thought, okay, maybe this could really be great. I have 14 expert contributors who are friends and colleagues from the industry who have written small segments all throughout my book to support all of these different, approaches and roles and everything. And I thought to myself, well, wow, that's one whole season right there. I've got 14 people, and so I talked to all of them. They said, we're game, let's do this. So I just kind of launched. I'm actually recording episode 8 tomorrow with a dear friend of mine, and I'll have that out by the middle of the month. And it's just been really fun. My goal was, as a creative, was to really launch leverage the foundation of the book, which was really showcasing how all of these different roles within the industry communicate. Right.
Okay.
I'm creative. I'd love to sit across the table from a technical person and somebody who does something very different from me. And we talk about how we work together, what what our relationship is like on a
Right.
project. And so I've tried to weave that through all of the episodes, and try to give everybody who's listening the opportunity to say, hey, that sounds like something I could do. I just thought that was hopefully going to be something that really touched audiences.
I love that. Podcast definitely do that.
Well, we're going to go one step further and talk about another thing that you are doing with your time, and that's being a very successful speaker, delivering inspirational and empowering messages through both keynote and business performances. What motivates you, though, to share your experiences and insights in a way that lifts up and empowers others?
Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this, because it's such a passionate opportunity. What I realized, when you do project work and you're doing what I would call end to end the process, right? You start with the client, you build the budget, you build the strategy, blue sky, blah 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 blah, all the way through. It takes a long time, and when I'm just a small boutique firm, I would only be able to do one, maybe two of those projects a year.
Hmm.
So I started focusing early days, it was like year 2, on doing early stage engagement and working with C-suites and governments and design firms at the beginning. And what I found was, you can really be a heavy influence at the very beginning of a project, or within an organization that's trying to do things differently, make improvements, that kind of thing,
Hmm.
or even governments that are investing in whole land developments and getting them to think differently about that. So my service, creatively speaking, is of course, it's about keynotes, it's about workshops, it's those types of engagements. But even in this, it's expanded into some pretty interesting conversations, including working with His Royal Highness, um, uh, the Minister of Tourism for Saudi Arabia, and a couple
Wow.
members of the royal party, or royal family, were at an event that I did in Riyadh. And so it's that kind of thing.
Wow.
It's just, wow, who would have ever thought, we'd be doing stuff like that?
That's very cool.
I
both of
know.
us,
So
both of
cool,
us just
right?
went. Well, Ken and I just both went wow at the same time. I just realized that.
Yeah,
So
how could you
uh,
not?
that's very cool. Very cool.
Mhm.
Well,
Fun
Mhm.
stuff.
it's great. Well, Walt Disney Imagineering and the company as a whole are currently undertaking several major projects. As we all know, we've talked about it many times on the channel here, especially with the exciting developments tied into the Florida parks. As someone who's helped shape the Disney landscape through creative legacy, I'd just be curious about your overall perspective about kind of where they're going and what they're doing with this ambitious initiative. It's a lot of parks, it's a lot of time, it's trying to keep up with competition. As we all know, Epic came out there strong, swinging a
Yeah.
heavy stick. I'd love to hear your perspective.
I always, my perspective when I was in the industry as an Imagineer, press would ask me, for example, about the competition. And I would always be cheeky and say, oh, yeah, the beaches in Florida are great. And it wasn't dismissive of Busch Gardens or SeaWorld or Universal, because I honestly didn't really see them as competition. Competition is share of wallet and share of time, right?
Okay.
Guests are only going to take so many days, and that puts everybody on an equal playing field to stage the very best experiences to attract that tourist. And
I
I
love
think
that.
that's really, really important. So to see Disney continue their reinvestment strategy, bringing new product, new experiences to the guest, I think is phenomenal. I love that. I think they have to do that. One disappointment that I have is I would have liked to have seen them take some of that investment and invest in original story development. That is one area that, in my own humble opinion, Disney really cut their teeth on. Right, that is the innovations that made Disney what they are. Is all of these stories that Walt developed and the
Right.
early Imagineers that didn't exist anywhere. They made their own IP. So I think Avengers and Star Wars and 20th Century Fox, I think all of that is great. Pixar, I think that was smart media buys, but to then do all to only create product within those, I think is a missed opportunity. I would have loved to have seen them do something somewhere, even small, that's just wholly original, because I think that's what Disney does the best.
It sounds like the voice of my broadcasting partner there, because we've talked about that. And she's talked about not only that, she's also talked about
Mhm.
organizational theming throughout the park. She's not happy about 9,000 things all over the place there. So just trust your heart. So I love
Don't get me
that. See,
started.
don't get. But
Yeah.
you're being backed
No,
up by a
Triggered.
Disney Imagineer, so I can't argue with you
no,
when your source is a
no,
Mhm.
Imagineer. So love it.
no shade from me on Disney. I'm happy to see the reinvestment. It's just, if
Absolutely.
I had my creative heart would love to see something brand new that just hooks people in a way that only Disney can do.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. Well said.
Said
Theron can be
perfectly.
Absolutely. Theron can be found over on Instagram, everybody. You can keep up with him. We've been dropping that link throughout the night, also available in there. So keep an eye up there. I'm following to keep up with everything that's going on. Y'all, we talk a lot about, YouTube and the channels and what we have here. His podcast can be found over here, multiple eyes on contact over there. So give it a follow over on YouTube if you had a good time tonight. And maybe we get him up over 2,000 followers over there. You can keep up with the podcast and everything going on. If you want to get connected, you can LinkedIn with Theron over there on LinkedIn. A lot going on over there, a lot of information, a lot more than we even shared tonight with what you can keep up between both his LinkedIn and also his website, of course, which we're dropping in there. Thank you, Debbie, for dropping that as well. The book has its website itself, and that link is in the chat as well. You can get right to the book. Highly encourage you to get all over that journey into the theme experience design. What better than yeah, not so scary Mary says fascinating. Absolutely. I agree with you. And of course, the quickest and easiest way is to get over to Amazon, click that button. You can have it to you. If you got Prime, it says you can have it to you real quick up there. So that's a good thing here as we finish out. Also want to highlight the podcast. You can find that over on Theron's website as well. You can keep up. There's some amazing names over there already, and I can only imagine what the future is going to bring with many, many great things over on the podcast. As we finish up, we always try to do our final thoughts of the night. Before we do our final thought, I let Theron throw his out there. I want to remind everybody of a couple of things. One, he's got an upcoming event for him will be a university book tour. There's more to come on that. That's going to be starting in the fall. So maybe some of the universities around you, he'll be visiting. You could stop in, say hello, bring a book to sign. He would love that, I'm sure. He'll be speaking on a panel at the IAAPA Expo this November, which will be in Orlando as well. And he's also working on some author book signing events at local bookstores in the Orlando area. So if you follow his Instagram and follow his socials and keep up, that's how you'll know where he's going to be and do that. Before you do a final thought, though, I got another curveball. Jen's going to kill me because that's two curveballs in one show. I was challenged by a dear friend who you did a book with. How does Disney do that? Mr. James Warda, who thinks the
Yeah.
world of Theron. I can't say enough
He's a great guy.
about the things
Love
he said.
James.
So he actually had a challenge, and this will tie into earlier. He said to me, before you let him go tonight, ask him to tell one story about something he didn't tell. He said he is an iconic storyteller. So with that being said, I'm going to throw to you. Can you tell us a story about the Sorcerer Mickey hat that we don't know? Because you said you had a bunch.
I do. I'm trying to think of how to condense it. Well, let's say the Sorcerer Mickey hat, the original concept of that to be the icon to represent 100 years of magic, that hat positioning was originally outside of the Disney MGM studios in the front area, the promenade, entrance promenade. In fact, it was designed to be right on the lake, so you'd have this great reflection at
Oh,
night. All the media shots, you'd see the hat reflected in the lake. And the inside of that hat was an attraction. They actually had Ferris wheels for the ears. And on the inside was, what do they call that? It's like they don't call it a moonshot. It's like an observatory where the
okay.
center spine and the little round vehicle goes up
Up.
the pole, rod, and the whole inside of the hat was a journey through Walt's 100 years projected on the inside of the hat as the vehicle moved up. And when it got to the top of the hat, there was windows, so you could literally look out over all of Walt Disney World.
Oh, my
And
word.
that was the original design. It was bigger than the actual piece that ended up getting into the park. And through a whole bunch of corporate rigmarole, it was decided not to do that. And through one leader that was in the park at the time, I won't mention names, on the model one particular day, grabbed the hat, broke it off the model in Glendale, and shoved it in front of the great movie ride and said, enough, this is where we're going to have it. And that's why it ended up there, unfortunately.
Wow. Now that's a story. I love that.
I
Okay.
know, but I'm so sad because that would have been so amazing.
Imagine
Amazing.
that. Just listen. I was on the edge of my seat listening to the story of what it was in incarnation.
Mhm.
That would have been spectacular. That would have.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, but
there was only a merchandise cart at the bottom of it.
I think
They sold merch. That was it.
sometimes Imagineers and their storytelling we're such purists, right?
right.
And I think it was outside because that was the best location outside of the park. And then commercially, people were, I think, upset in the company because you weren't paying to go see it.
Right.
So
You could get it for free.
Yeah, that whole thing. But
That's a shame.
I don't know.
Well,
it was a much better idea.
I thank you for sharing that. That's absolutely fantastic. Okay,
Great.
final thought for the night. We'll throw it to Theron first. Anything you want to throw out there, and then Jen will go and I'll go, and we'll tidy this thing up.
Well, I just thank you guys for the opportunity to talk about all these great things, and I really appreciate you highlighting so much of what I've done, products, services, all that stuff. It's much more than just a business. It's not. It's not about the paycheck for me. Literally, I love engaging with clients and with, especially with helping the next generation. I really, really love that. It's one of my favorite things. I would just say to your audience, the majority of the engagement on social media, the channel that I use, platform I use the most is LinkedIn.
Okay.
I post at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, 6 days a week. So there's an enormous amount of content that comes out. I always take the approach of trying to expand my network and my audience's minds and thinking about things. I always try to take an educational route. So I am overjoyed when I have somebody, especially a new professional or somebody who's in school, and they write and they say, wow, thanks so much for all of this information. It's so incredibly helpful. So I would just say for your audience, you could go back and look at all my posts, and there I do a little bit on Instagram. I'm not as good as I should be. And then, of course, all my podcasts go to YouTube there as well.
I love that. Love that. Well, thank you there. Jen, always go to you next.
You know, when we think of a Disney Imagineer, we think like, wow, being a Disney Imagineer would be like the pinnacle of like any career you could have. That's it. It doesn't get much better than that. But as we heard tonight, and we've heard from other Imagineers also, that's just kind of your launching point into everything else that you're able to accomplish and share with the world as a result of that experience. So that is the fascinating thing for me, is to hear how it plays a role in everything else that you're able to create and still create and share with the world. So thank you for taking your time tonight to do that for us. And I think I'm going to hit up your podcast tonight. That sounds like something I'd really like. So thanks
Awesome.
for talking about that.
Love it.
Excellent. Well, I hope you
Love it.
enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Great as always. I want to highlight first, there was a ton of great comments throughout the stream tonight. I tried to highlight as many as I could. There were even more that I didn't get to. And of course, that'll be up there on replay if you'd like to check that out. I want to thank you again for taking the time to put trust in Jen and I to be able to continue to tell your story. We look at this opportunity that we do with dialogues as the storytelling vehicle to share those stories from those of the past, those current, and hopefully also look into the future. We look at the Disney parks today, Theron, and I said it at the beginning, and I know Jen and I have discussed this. We look at your efforts and what you've done for those of us that are Disney fans, and we just humbly say thank you for all the blood, sweat, tears, time, energy, stress away from family and everything you did through your career with Disney to help with your teams, because we all know that the key Imagineers work as a team. So we thank you and all your teams for what you did for us and for sharing everything here tonight with us here. I love what you've done after your time with Disney. You continue to breed success. You're doing it to give the opportunity to help others and to continue to grow what could be the future of storytellers out there. So thank you for that. Guys, if you haven't got the book, jump all over it. It's going to be an incredible read. I'm excited to do it. I mentioned to Theron. I mentioned to Theron. I did it, Dan. There you go. That's strike three for me tonight. Strike three for me tonight. I mentioned to Theron before the show, I'm going to work to get a copy of it and get it signed and put it into our military fundraising event for August in there with several of the other pieces that we have. I think it'll be another great opportunity for you all to support those soldiers who have served our country, and also for you to get a great copy of somebody who has meant a lot. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. I'll leave your guests with a little secret
Ooh.
clue. If you shop for the book through the book's website, it actually goes directly to my publisher, and the price is cheaper than on Amazon. So if you're depending on where you're at, because I depending on publishing, I have people in Singapore wanting to order the book, and it's $60 to ship. But
Oh,
so I would say check it out so that you have a price comparison. You may find a better deal direct from my publisher.
there you go. Debbie, could you drop that link in there one more time for the book website, please, if you wouldn't mind? If you just hang tight for a second, I'm going to close out with Jen and we'll chat with you backstage for a second.
Right.
Thank you. Jen, again, the term that you've used many a times, and I love it, is the peeling of the onion.
Onion.
Wow, we peeled an onion tonight, and I mean, I could have sat and listened to him for just talk for hours of
And you
so
know
many
what's
things.
funny is that I wanted to say that in my closing, but then I'm like, I can't say that again. I say it every time. I got to come up with something different. But it's you're right. I mean, it's you just pull
It's
back the layers and you find out more and more and more. Like the Disney Imagineering, like I said, you think it's like that is the
absolutely.
pinnacle.
Yep. Well,
And then you find out that's just one layer.
yep, he's an ultimate storyteller. That's the
Mhm.
best compliment that I can give. Speaking of
Yeah.
things coming up, Jen, we've got an
Yeah.
amazing interview coming up on the July 22nd, everybody. If you like Disney movies, you're going to want to tune in for this. The Wonderful World of Animation Gallery. Her name is Debbie Weiss. This is a gallery out in California. She sells. So she SELLS.
She
See,
sells
yeah, I know.
seashells.
Movie sells. It's
Sells.
amazing. Wait till you see just doing the prelim interview with her and talk with her. She had a Jiminy Cricket cell from one of the movies. She's like, yeah, I think that's Fantasia. I'm not sure. I got to go take a look. I'm like blown away. She had a Roger Rabbit, which was one of the first scenes in the movie. It's incredible. This young lady's going to bring it on. She's going to take us around her gallery
Mhm.
and talk all about it. I think that will be a unique night here on the channel. We are also in conversation with three other of Disney's top fine artists that'll be featured in the Festival of the Art and also out at Disneyana. And I'm also talking to another author and two other Disney Imagineers. We've got a lot coming up here for the summer. It's going to be a good time. I thank you all and hope that you'll come back. Jen, it's been an amazing night. Amazing night.
Yes, it has. Yes, it
Thank you.
has.
Thank you for sitting here with me and having some dialogues tonight. We hope that you'll join us for more dialogues in the future, as we can always find the magic wherever it is. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.